I begged my ex-husband to take me back, but he said he couldn't because I broke him. I begged my ex-husband to take me back after I cheated, but he said he couldn't forgive me because I broke him. I'm writing this because my therapist advised me to just get it off my chest, and strangely enough, the internet seemed like the right place for it. So here it is. I'm 42 years old, and 3 years ago, I cheated on my husband, who is also 42. It destroyed our family, and I regret it every single day. We started dating when we were 19. We weren't each other's firsts, but for 22 years, I thought we were happy. Of course, he had moments when he lost his temper, but he was always an open person. He could endure a lot, and when he snapped, he would say everything that was on his mind. I understood him. I did the same. I could say something cruel in anger, but he never held grudges against me. Intimately, we were fine. Of course, he wanted it more often. He initiated every day, but I was a stay-at-home mom with 5 kids, 3 daughters and 2 sons, and I was exhausted. He voiced his dissatisfaction when we weren't intimate, and that annoyed me. Looking back now, I realize we could have done it more often. Yet, he always helped around the house. He worked 60 hours a week, but made sure I got enough sleep on weekends, and that I woke up to a clean house and a prepared breakfast. Years went by. Our 3 eldest children started going to college, and I felt empty. I was bored. I was losing my mind from idleness. Our 2 youngest sons were still living with us, but they were already in middle school and hardly needed me. My husband noticed and suggested I get a job. Looking back, I realized I should have refused. I should have found a hobby or done something else. My husband was slightly overweight but attractive. My weight fluctuated between 150 and 210 pounds depending on the year. When I returned to work as a customer support representative, I weighed 160 pounds and felt great. I hadn't worked in 21 years, and it felt good to be back in a team. After a few months, I started spending time with young colleagues, 25-year-olds. My husband supported it because I had no female friends. I had previously encouraged him to be more social with colleagues, so I thought it was only fair to do the same. And these girls started planting strange ideas in my head. They told me I could do better, that my husband wasn't that sexy, that he was holding me back. Even one of my male colleagues said my husband was a beta pretending to be an alpha, and I believed it. At that moment, it seemed like my husband just talked a lot but didn't take action. Yes, I'd seen him argue with people who spoke badly about him, and he had no problem standing his ground, but I had never seen him in a physical fight. I don't know where these thoughts came from. I loved him. I respected him, and he respected me in return. All our friends told me how lucky I was to have him, and I truly felt happy. But somehow, these people got into my head, and I started doubting my love for him. Every time I talked to my colleagues, they pushed me closer and closer to cheating. Eventually, I started flirting with that same colleague who called my husband a beta. He was my age. He was handsome, fit, and after a few weeks, one thing led to another. He made the first move, and I just gave in. We had sex at every opportunity. I felt young, desired, and I treated my husband horribly. I rejected his advances, mocked his weight, and even tried to convince him he was crazy when he started getting suspicious. I had no idea what was happening to me. Looking back now, I don't know why I acted that way. I don't understand who that woman was that I had become. I realized how bad it was when, during dinner, my husband crushed a glass in his hand, looking at me with hatred. "You have a hickey," he spat, wrapping his bleeding hand before leaving for the hospital. My son stared at me in shock. My eldest son's eyes turned bright red, and he ran out of the room. I called my lover and yelled at him, but he just replied that he wanted to mark his territory. I felt sick with disgust. For the first time, I truly regretted what I had done. Late that night, my husband came home. He looked me straight in the eyes and asked how long it had been going on. I wanted to lie, to deny everything, but I saw his expression and answered honestly. "For months." "Did you suck his dick?" I was silent. He walked around me, stopped near my ear, and quietly enough that only I could hear, he said, "I want a divorce, you fucking whore." I got angry. He had never spoken to me like that before. All I could do was cry, especially when I saw our sons standing on the staircase. They looked at me with such fury, and I got angry at my husband for saying that in front of the kids. I should have been angry at myself, should have felt disgusted with myself, but I was blind. My husband immediately shut down emotionally, as if flipping a switch. At that moment, his love for me disappeared. My female colleagues supported me. They told me I was making the right choice, that I could now spend more time with lovers. And I believed them. I didn't want to drag out our breakup. My husband moved out, renting an apartment just a kilometer away. My son started treating me like garbage, and my daughters simply stopped talking to me. My lover started coming over despite my protests. He just showed up, and that was it. It made the kids furious, but he didn't leave. One day, when my ex-husband came to pick up our sons, my lover was there. He was physically stronger than my ex, but my husband just smiled and said, "Not now." He said it with a smile. Not now, but soon. Later, my lover became controlling. He dictated what I ate, what I wore. He said horrible things to me when no one was around, and I let it happen. When our divorce was finalized, we split the assets 50-50, and I paid my ex's share for the house. Officially, we had joint custody, but the boys refused to live with me and moved in with their father. I hadn't seen my eldest daughters in a long time. They wouldn't pick up the phone, wouldn't respond to my messages. I only found out one of them was in a serious relationship when my ex mentioned it in passing. But the most painful moment was signing the papers. When I saw him take off his wedding ring and place it on the document, I could barely breathe. I stared at that ring, picked up my pen, and froze. At that moment, I finally realized how much I had ruined. I destroyed my marriage. I ruined my relationship with my children. And now, I might be in an abusive relationship. I broke down in tears, gasping for air, overwhelmed, but eventually I signed the papers. A week after the divorce, my lover hit me for the first time. I was telling him about my day, accidentally knocked over the nightstand, and his phone fell to the floor. He looked at me, slapped me across the face, and called me clumsy. I called my ex-husband. The first thing he asked was, "Does he touch our children?" I answered no, and he simply hung up. That night, I cried myself to sleep. Soon, my lover stopped holding back. He hit me more and more often. This went on for 2 months. Back then, I thought I deserved it. My ex-husband had never laid a hand on me, but my lover did. I saw it as karma. It all ended when he hit my daughter, who had come home from college because of the quarantine. She was the only one of my kids still living with me. My 2 older daughters lived with their father. One phone call from her, and my ex-husband showed up. He offered my lover the first punch, then beat him half to death. The whole time, his face was stone cold, void of emotion. I begged him to stop. He looked at our daughter's face and asked, "Which hand did he hit you with?" Then he broke my lover's right hand by stomping on it. When it was over, my ex grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out of the house. He never looked at me, never acknowledged my presence. He drove him to the hospital and told the doctors he had fallen down the stairs. My ex-husband stayed with him at the hospital. I don't know what they talked about, but the next day my lover quit his job and disappeared from my life. I went on with mine, and my ex started sleeping with my single friends, even with a couple of my colleagues. One of them was the very same woman who had convinced me to cheat. I found out later when I overheard her complaining to coworkers that he wrecked her back, then stopped answering her calls. It hurt me. I think he did it on purpose. I tried dating, but nothing worked out. I was a single mother of 5, and that scared men away. Looking back, I realized that even my lover couldn't satisfy me the way my ex-husband did. And then I asked myself, why did I let this happen? I was happy. How did I let myself be manipulated like this? I don't understand. During that time, the house was silent. My sons either locked themselves in their rooms or stayed with their father. My daughters, except for one, avoided me. It hurt. My ex-husband saw what was happening and called a family meeting. All the kids came home. I was happy to see them together, but they didn't want to be there. He started telling them they needed to talk to me. Then my youngest son called me a whore. It felt like a punch to the chest. I stared at him, unable to believe it. My ex-husband yelled at him, right in front of me. "Have I ever called your mother that?" he barked. My son silently shook his head. "Your mother takes care of you. She loves you. You will respect her." He looked at all the children, and that meant more than any words. You will all start respecting your mother. Am I clear? After that, my relationship with my children started to heal. On the 2nd anniversary of our divorce, we were civil to each other. We laughed. We talked. He often came over to my house to fix things, to discuss the kids. For a while, it felt like my husband was back. One day, I reached for him, But he pushed me away and silently left. A month later, he started dating our youngest child's teacher. She was 10 years younger than him. They had a lot in common. She was incredibly beautiful, and I tried to be polite while they were dating. But watching how he looked at her, how he touched her, how he laughed with her, she became the center of his attention. And then I understood why people envied us. Why everyone told me I was lucky to have him. It was devotion. Why hadn't I noticed it before? I had a nervous breakdown when I found out they were expecting a baby and planning to get married. I woke up to find him sitting beside me, brushing the hair from my face. I just broke down in tears and started begging him to forgive me for destroying our family. He said nothing. He just held me. Let me get it all out. He came to see me every day, only leaving to see his fiancée, and she even came over herself to check if I was okay. I don't deserve their sympathy or her kindness. She even found a therapist for me, and they paid for my treatment. My therapist was brutally honest. She said I had a midlife crisis, and instead of talking to my husband, I let younger women manipulate me. She explained that they wanted to destroy my marriage because they were single, and most of them would probably never get married. They saw me as an easy target. Misery loves company, and the fact that the ringleader ended up sleeping with my ex-husband only proved her point. After months of therapy, still unable to move on, my therapist suggested I write a post online, make an anonymous account, and spill my pain. It's a form of therapy, a unique alternative to group sessions. My ex-husband's new wife is an amazing person. She often checks on me, talks to me, and no matter how much I want to hate her, I can't. She's too kind, and their twins are a miracle. My ex-husband also drops by sometimes, just to make sure I'm eating, that I'm okay. He says that no matter what, I'll always be the mother of his children, and he'll always be there. As a friend, last Saturday, he came over, let me sleep in, cleaned the house, and made breakfast. And I broke down crying again. I miss him so much. I miss my husband. I miss my best friend. I still don't understand how I was manipulated so easily. I feel so alone. My kids are here, but we're not as close as we used to be. But they are here. The one I want most is not. He has a new life, and it's my fault. Someday I'll move on too. But right now I deserve this. I deserve everything that's happening to me. I want to clarify the situation. I want to talk about what my ex-husband went through, but I feel like it's not my story to tell when it comes to his pain. I tried countless times to make amends, but he wanted nothing to do with me. It was made even worse by the fact that my lover wouldn't leave me alone, no matter how hard I tried. He just wouldn't go away, and I felt trapped in our affair. It was a strange kind of numbness, hard to explain, as if I was watching myself from the outside. The day everything came out, I was going to end the affair for good, but he left a hickey on me. I remember begging my husband for another chance. It was a few days after he found out about my infidelity. He just looked at me and walked away. He spoke to me only 3 times after that. When he tried to stay civil while signing the divorce papers, when I called him after my lover hit me, and the day after he nearly killed my former lover. That day, he let everything out. As I already mentioned, he has a habit of bottling up anger for a long time and then exploding. He yelled at me, talked about the stupid decisions I had made, how I had destroyed him, how unfair it was that he had to grieve our marriage while being strong for the kids. And I just cried because I realized I had broken this man. This strong person who, if I had asked, would have found a way to freeze hell itself for me. I apologized, but he didn't want to hear it. He said my ex-lover would never bother me again and walked away. A year passed before he even started talking to me normally. Before that, he just didn't want to see me. When he started sleeping with women I knew, I didn't say anything. I understood why he was doing it and thought he had earned that right. After that family gathering, when he demanded that the kids start talking to me again, he started acting civil with me for their sake. That's when I truly realized what I had lost. After that, my children slowly started coming back to me. The youngest held out the longest, but I tried. God, how I tried to rebuild our relationship. My children became my top priority. When they saw me making an effort, they slowly began to open up to me, but not like before. 2 years after the divorce, when I saw my kids laughing in our home, when I saw my ex-husband joking, grilling with them, dancing with our daughters, I thought that if I tried even harder, if I showed him how deeply I regretted everything, I could win him back. I did everything I could. I suggested family therapy, wore the clothes he once bought me, his favorite perfume, style my hair the way he liked. But he just ignored me. That's why I tried to kiss him that day. I thought there was still something between us, but he stopped me. I broke down crying, begging him, but he just stood there, silently looking at me. He said he couldn't be with me because I had broken him. He would never kiss me again because my lips had touched another man. He would never hold me again because I had allowed another to touch me. He would never lie in bed with me again because I had slept with someone else. I tried to argue that he had been with other women after the divorce, but he cut me off sharply. That was after the divorce. But you betrayed me while we were still married. My body and heart belonged to you, just as yours should have belonged to me. And you destroyed that. I tried to maintain a friendship with him, but it's hard. I was married to this man for over 20 years, and I destroyed our marriage in just 6 months. For what? A midlife crisis? A desperate need for female friendships? A desire to fit in with younger women? Looking back, I don't recognize the person I became. Everything I did felt so unlike me. My third daughter understood everything. She held me together, helped me. I didn't even know she was home that day. Usually, my former lover would hit me when the kids were away or in the car, where no one could see. I was always afraid when they left, but I allowed him to treat me that way because I thought I deserved it. That evening, for the first time in a long while, I decided to stand up to him. I told him to get out. He did not like that at all. When he hit me and pinned me against the wall, my daughter appeared out of nowhere and jumped on his back. He threw her off and hit her. In a rage, I struck him and ran with my daughter into the garage. He started banging on the door. My daughter called her father. When my ex-husband arrived, he just kicked down the garage door. I barely managed to stop him, or he would have killed him. His new wife is a true blessing for him. She gave him the chance to love again, to be himself. I didn't want to be part of his new life, but it was her initiative. She had also been in an abusive relationship before meeting my ex-husband. She didn't want hostility, but she immediately made it clear that if I crossed a line, she knew how to put me in my place. My kids adore her. She was their English teacher, after all. There are moments when guilt completely paralyzes me. Yes, I still work at the same company, and I eventually became a manager. I fired those women. I knew all their dirty secrets, so it wasn't hard. I just miss my old life. That's all.